It's Thursday. It is not noon. It is 4 o'clock. I think it is. Yes, 4 o'clock, and it's me, your boy, Hayden Greene, your host for the Greenhouse Effect. Welcome, those of you who are tuning in and are able to tune in today. I am your host, Hayden Greene, and I will be taking you through as I tell people. I watch the news and all these programs, so you don't have to, right? And so we can talk about all the crazy stuff that's happening, and I'll try to keep you up to date. So we have had quite a week. For those of you who have not been paying attention, we've had a very tumultuous week. We've had almost everything that you can conceivably happen over after a coup or an attempted coup happen over this course of this week. So we're gonna break it all down and I'll look out for your comments. But it's been a long week. It's so funny because every single time I look at my notes afterwards, after a show, I was like, oh man, I forgot to mention this thing, or I forgot to mention that thing. And then today I'm looking at my notes right now, and I'm like, I'm not getting through half of this page over here. So y'all just strap in and stay with me. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know that y'all are there, and I'll try to answer any questions that you may have. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about this the other day. I need to bring my daughter in here and let her answer some of y'all questions. So maybe that might be a segment. We'll get Hayden in there. We'll ask her questions live on the air. She's normally grumpy after school, so that ought to make some fun answers. So we'll see how that plays out. But somebody hit the comments to make sure that I see them, because remember the last time when we didn't have any comments and it was a weird show. I don't want it to be a weird show. I'm already weird as it is. So nobody needs any more weirdness from me, right? Isn't that right, Leon? I know you're out there saying all of these things about me. So I'm just gonna check over here on my phone to make sure that we have comments coming in. All right, let's get started. So I have become that kind of dude. We now have a cat, and for those of you who haven't been following me, and I don't expect that everybody's following me, but for those of you who haven't been following me, hey Larry, so good. The comments are working. We have a cat now, and I have become one of those people who post on Facebook and Instagram about the perils of having a cat. And having a cat, the perils of having a cat are numerous. And I had forgotten about them because I'm a cat person. I've had cats all my life, right? I've forgotten about how obnoxious that they can be, because the last time that I had a cat, I didn't have a laptop. Why? Because laptops weren't invented yet. So all of y'all younger people who are watching this, all three of you, I grew up in a time when we didn't have laptops. If we had a computer in the home, it was a desktop, and it was huge. Hey, Judy. And it was huge, and it sat in the corner, and the cats really didn't mess with it too much. The closest thing that I had to a laptop was one of the earlier computers. I had a Commodore 64. How many, if you had a Commodore 64, hit me up in the comments. And I still have the Commodore 64. It's sitting in my office. Right, so I had a Commodore 64, and the cat didn't bother the Commodore 64. As a matter of fact, I'm not quite sure we had a cat that time. I think by that time we had a dog named Clava. Anyway, so I had a Commodore 64. Cat didn't bother it. Apparently, laptops are cat magnets, and I cannot get any work done down here. I do the show from an elevated seat, so I'm like a little bit off the ground, and the cat is Dash had a 64. There you go. And so my table's a little bit elevated, so Puppy can't get up here. For those of you who don't know, the cat's name is Puppy. Puppy can't get up here, so she stands on the couch, which is like right off to the side here, at the top of the couch, and she thinks about jumping onto the table, and I'm like, don't do it, right? But she can't get up here, so she stands in the corner and meows at me because she's like, why are you not playing with me? You're in the room. You should be playing with me. And that's pretty much the way she thinks about the world, right? If you're in this room, you should either be feeding me, or petting me. And that's pretty much our role in her life. And she makes it quite clear that we have roles. So I have had this cat come and literally want to be petted and then sit on my laptop as I'm trying to work. And now here's a crazy thing. I have two laptops. I have my work laptop and I have my photography laptop. So at any point in time, I probably have two laptops open, one of which is sitting in my lap and I'm typing on, and the other which is like off to the side a little bit, open and also on. I'm going to give you three guesses as to which one this cat always comes and sits on. And I get it. You want to sit in my lap. But if I'm not sitting with a laptop, she don't want to sit on my lap. She'll sit next to me if I don't have the laptop. If I have the laptop, it's right on top of my keyboard. And here's the next crazy thing. Every time she walks across the keyboard, she launches Apple iTunes. I don't know how. There's no iTunes button on my keyboard that says press this button and it opens up iTunes. I don't get it. But every time she walks across, iTunes opens up, music starts playing, and I'm like, this is wholly unproductive. So anyway, I become one of those people who complains about the fact that their cat photobombs them or crashes their work life and stuff like that. I become that person. I'm trying not to be a cat person, but slowly but surely, I am becoming a cat person. Oh, by the way, if anybody wants a cat bed, let me know, because we bought a cat tree, we bought a cat bed, we bought all these kind of things so that the cat will be very comfortable, and puppy sleeps everywhere except the damn cat bed. I mean, granted, the couches are very comfortable. As a matter of fact, she's like asleep on the couch right now. But like the couches are very comfortable down here, and I get it. So I would sleep on the couches too instead of the bed. And she sleeps on the penthouse of the cat tree. I get that too. You get the cat's eye view, and you can see everything. But we bought a bed, and now nobody's using the bed. So if you need a bed, let me know. I'm willing to let it go. Anyway, so that's the cat. Today is January 14th, which means that we are in the midst of the Black Greek lettered organization's Founders Day marathon. So we started with Kappa Alpha Psi. Phi Beta Sigma, my organization, just had its Founders Day on Saturday, on which we got to have a conversation with one of our fraternity brothers who is on the space station. So we had a live conversation with somebody who was on the space station during our Founders Day celebration. I don't know about y'all, but that's pretty dope to me, right? So that was Saturday. And yesterday was Delta Sigma Theta's Founders Day. Happy belated Founders Day to them. And all the women of DST, including my wife. Tomorrow is Alpha Kappa Alpha, and so congratulations to them as well. The mother of my god, the mother of my godmother, the mother of my goddaughter, and one of my closest friends is an AKA. Plus, I have a whole horde of friends who are AKAs. And for those of you who don't know, Kamala Harris is also an AKA. So they'll be celebrating their Founders Day tomorrow. And then on Saturday, we close out January with the Founders Day for Zeta Phi Beta, my sister organization, and the organization that my sister is in. All right. So it's like every day the timeline is just inundated with people just wishing Happy Founders Day to everybody. So Happy Founders Day to everybody, and I hope you all are having or finding a really good way of celebrating the event in this very troubling times. So find your own space, I guess, is where we're at. Speaking of space, I live in New York City. For those of you who don't know, I live in New York City, and so we were at one point in time the epicenter for the coronavirus. Like everybody was looking at New York City. It's like, oh my God, what's happening in New York? Oh my God, look at that, look at that. And you've heard me talk about this on former shows. It's like everybody who was looking at us with scorn, just mind your P's and Q's and be aware that it's coming your way. Right. But here's the thing that bothered me so much was that people were not learning from the lessons that we had learned in New York City, and we're just going into this pandemic again, all willy nilly without preparation. So here we are, and we're seeing the numbers spike. Yesterday's 4,000 people died across the country from the coronavirus. It's the largest numbers in the history of the actual infections of the not quarantine, but the epidemic. Right, the highest numbers in the history of the epidemic. Right, so all these people are dying, and nobody learned the lessons from New York City. We had people stocked up in refrigerator cargo things, right? The trucks, the trailers, the refrigerated trailers, because there were no places to put these bodies that were dying at such a rapid rate. It was well documented, and people didn't listen. Well, and this is the thing that's annoying me, because now we're seeing the same thing in California again. We're now seeing the same thing in Texas. We're now seeing the same things in all of these different hotspots all across the nation. New York City's, our numbers are spiking again, but we're nowhere near where we were the last time that this came through. Knock on wood. Yes, that's wood, not brick. And so it's very disheartening to me. Very, very disheartening. But what's even more disheartening is now we have a vaccine, right? And so we have a vaccine, and everybody is starting to feel like, okay, it's the light at the end of the tunnel. And so one of the things that I was watching the show, and somebody said, it's like, we had some of the greatest minds come together and actually come up with a vaccine in record time, and yet and still, what is going to make all of this fail is that the delivery system was not as well thought out. So we had everybody thinking about how to get the vaccine. Everybody started thinking about how to mass produce the vaccine. Everybody, this Operation Warp Speed was like, how do we get it from the vaccine manufacturers all the way to the places that had to distribute the vaccines? Thought about all of that stuff. What happened? They didn't think about the last piece of the puzzle. How are you going to get it from, what are the systems, what are the logistics for getting it out of the package that it came from Moderna, into the arms of the people who need it, right? So the logistics behind the vaccine distribution are completely upside down. And this is, again, part of the way that we have been dealing with this particular epidemic, where the central government, the federal government, is taking one approach to it and starts to disseminate all of this information, or all of these rhetoric and all of these edicts all the way through, right? And then when they get down to the actual state level, the federal government's like, all right, states, y'all do whatever you want. Y'all go ahead and make it happen in the way that it makes sense for y'all. And we're not going to give you any money to figure this out. So this happened in treatment, where people didn't, states were like, well, I want to have ventilators, but I don't have any money for that. And the federal government's like, that's cute, right? And then, there were things like PPEs. Yes, this is the late edition, Felicia. Then there was things like PPEs were not being distributed, or people couldn't get access to the PPEs. And the federal government was looking at states and like, well, y'all should figure this out. And this is the same thing that's happening with the vaccine distribution. So now the federal government's like, vaccines for everyone, and just passing it out to everyone, and making sure that they're getting to everyone that they're supposed to, the states that they're supposed to be getting to. And now the states are like, well, we don't have the logistics behind all of this, or we haven't put that in place. Right now in New York, I think the last numbers were that they have only distributed a quarter of the vaccines that are actually present in New York City and New York State, which means that there are a bunch of vaccines that have already made it here. They're here, right? And they're already made it here. They're here. All they have to do is stick people in the arm. And the problem is that the states were not set up for thousands and thousands and thousands of people wanting to get this vaccine. I don't know if they thought that people were going to be slow to want to get this vaccine, and we know why certain people are, but there is a backlog of people who want to get this vaccine and can't get it because the system is clogged up. And then there are situations where people are coming or finally getting an appointment to get the vaccine. They show up at the clinic or the doctor's office or the drugstore, they pull the vaccine out to give it to these people, and then they don't show up. And the problem with the vaccine is, if you pull it out, you have to use it. Let that wash over y'all for a little bit. If you pull it out, you have to use it. Anyway, if you divorce these things, you then have to use it. And if you don't use it in a certain amount of time, then it goes to waste. You have to throw it away, right? If it thaws out too much, you can't use it. And so I was telling Victoria, my friend, I was like, yo, listen, this is at the point where it's like, so what's happening is that people are making an appointment for the vaccine. They're pulling the vaccine out, and then and then people are not showing up, and the doctors are like, well, what do we do with this vaccine? Now we have to throw it away. And this is where it gets confusing, because this is where you should be double and triple booking, right? Normally double booking is a bad thing, because people then realize that they're not going to get something because they realize they were double booked. But if you tell me, here is your primary appointment, but here's another appointment that is available, I can double book you and put you on standby. We're all familiar with standby, right? I can put you on standby in case said person doesn't show up. If that person doesn't show up, you get the vaccine, right? Here's what I always say. There's got to be smarter people than me thinking about this stuff. And sometimes I just feel like maybe there isn't, right? Because that seems like a logical way of booking things. It's the way we book airlines, right? I book a flight for 8 o'clock, but there's another flight going to the same place that I'm going to at 6 o'clock. I say, I'll go on standby at 6 o'clock. If there's a seat open at 6 o'clock, there I go, right? But I at least know that I have my definitive seat at 8 o'clock. How is this not logical for vaccine distribution? Anyway, and it's at the point where it's like, look, man, we either going to lose all of these vaccines that we just opened up because there are 10 doses in each vial. I was like, just grab people off the street at that point in time. It's like, you, over there, you look like somebody that needs a vaccine shot. Let's go put this in your arm, right? Yeah, I'm being draconian and I'm hyperbolic, right? But listen, we've got to figure out something where this is not being wasted. And the other thing is that they have these now 24-hour distribution centers. The Naval Yard in Brooklyn is one of those places where it's 24 hours. You can go at 3 in the morning and get a shot. Who's going at 3 in the morning? And the reports are that at 3 in the morning, there is nobody. But at 3 in the afternoon, it's crowded. So what's the point of having a 24-hour thing if the hours that are optimal are flooded, right? And nobody's using the off-peak hours? I think we have to have a better system for doing this. All right, let's see what we got here in the chat. Holly says it's a labor-intensive vaccine to give. It's mixed on site. There's special training to administer. They don't have the trained manpower. That's also true. You need space for people to wait to be monitored for 15 to 20 minutes after they receive it. That's the thing that always gets me. It's like they want you to wait 15 to 20 minutes to see if you turn into a zombie, or that you have an adverse reaction or turn into a zombie. So in New York State is now asking for auxiliary medical professionals to go through vaccine administration training. My mom was thinking about was talking about that. I'm like, okay, here we go. Like, but if you got nothing going on right now, go get trained to give a vaccine. Because it is literally a waste of resources. It is literally a waste of resources at this point in time. You have thousands and thousands of vials, and so here's the thing, right? You need two doses for each one of these vaccines. If we are having this much trouble getting the first dose in, when it comes time for you to get your second dose, or do you have an automatic, like when you leave, are you given an automatic appointment for your second dose? And I hear people are going from getting first dose in one place and going to another place to get their second dose. Why can't we do this better? There's got to be smarter people available to figure this out. There has got to be. It makes me very disappointed that there are not smarter people on the job trying to figure this out. Now I know the vaccine came at us really quickly, but it wasn't like, all right, you need to get this done yesterday. We had months of Operation Warp Speed to know that they was going to be sending us a chunk of vaccinations and that we had a chunk of people that needed to be vaccinated. Why did we get caught with our pants down? And that's literally what's happening now. We're getting caught with our pants down. And it's very disappointing. 75% of the available vaccines have not been distributed. It just doesn't make any sense. And now everybody is scrambling to have these mega sites where massive amounts of people can come in and get vaccinated. What it actually is massive amounts of people can wait to get vaccinated because, like Holly mentioned, they need specialized people to actually distribute the vaccine, which means that you can have a big site, but if you don't have people to staff it, then it's just a big site where people are standing in line, or even a bigger site where people can be monitored afterward for 15 minutes. And I get the monitoring piece, but at the same time, they don't have the staff to do it. And it's really a lack of preparation. And my fear is that if we are, as a advanced metropolitan city, having this much problems, although New York can be very archaic when it wants to be, if we're having these problems, can you imagine the podunk town in wherever burg, and who's trying to figure this out on their own? Again, they put all the money into the development, they put all the money into the distribution to get it to the states, and then they were like, all right, good luck. Crazy. But, hopefully this all works out. Boy. Anyway, so it's been a week since the president tried to get the vice president killed. Yes, I know when you put it that way, it's quite serious, certain. Yes, so it's been a week since the president tried to get the vice president killed, and a lot of stuff is coming out. And it is even more disturbing when you see all of the stuff that is like playing out in the media right now, and all different types of media. And you can trust me, or you can look for yourself. Everybody's looking at this almost the same way. Fox is still a little bit like trying to make excuses for it. But for the most part, they're like, yeah, nah, this is really a screwed up situation, and there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, right? So first and foremost, it is clear and I know we got on here last week, and I talked about the fact that this was premeditated and that there were um, people came prepared, and you are seeing that there are more people than just me who are also of that opinion that this was premeditated, this was planned. And I was talking to Victoria yesterday, and I think that there were two types of people who showed up in the on the Capitol yesterday. There were the people who were like gung ho and had watched one too many survival videos, who had watched one too many conspiracy theories, and had gone to the Army Navy supply a surplus store and bought a bunch of stuff and showed up for combat, right? Like Larry just put, like the Rudy Giuliani talked about trial by combat. Showed up with no training, just was like, we're gonna take over the Capitol, and they fully expected when they got up there, right, that they would get rebuffed. They fully expected that when they came up to the Capitol, that they would be, everything would be, that they would be like, oh, I was just joking about this thing. And then when the surge pushed through and they realized that they were getting access to the Capitol, they thought it was a joke. They were like, "Oh, look at us! We're in the Capitol. Yeah. I'm a pee in the corner, or I'm a steal a podium, or I'm a do this, that, and the other." First type of people. Second type of people were the people who are actual trained paramilitary people and sometimes military people and law enforcement people who were like, "Nah, dog, we serious about this," right? People who showed up with flex cuffs, right? So not the zip ties that you tie up your garbage with, flex cuffs, right? Looking to restrain people. People who showed up with armor. People who showed up with their own tear gas. People who showed up with riot police gear and shields. Who with rope. When you see people scaling that wall, there are people who are scaling that wall by themselves, and everybody's seen the video of a dude falling off the top of the wall with Donkey Kong on the top of him, right? But there are people who are scaling the wall with ropes. Who comes to a protest with scaling ropes? These are people who were dead serious about what they were going to do, and were using the people who were clowns to be a diversion. Right? They were using the people who were like rah, rah, rah and not really organized as a diversion, because they knew what they were going to do. They knew that they were serious about causing injury and about maybe even disrupting the government. Not even disrupting, but they were serious. They were coming for Mike Pence. They were coming for Pelosi. They were coming for Democratic senators and congressmen. They were coming for the people that they deemed to be traitors. Right? So this was pretty serious. And Felicia's right. There was tours. Senators were giving tours to the very same people who raided the Capitol the next day. Tours. And people, I think it was one of the senators from New Jersey, one of the Congress people from New Jersey said, as a military veteran, I looked at those tours, and those tours were reconnaissance tours. The stuff that they were pointing out, right? Those were reconnaissance tours. Those weren't normal, hey, this is the Capitol building. Here's the rotunda. Here's the hall of statues. They were back aisle and back corridor tours, reconnaissance tours, right? And so those facts are now starting to come out. And it is without a doubt that there were conspirators on both sides of this, right? There are senators who were all about this. And they warned us a couple of days before. They said, on the day of the vote, we will have our day. We will have our day. Mickey Sherrill, that's right, right? We will have our day. And so they knew that this was coming. So I know a lot. I know a couple of people were pushing back on my statements last week about this felt like this was a concerted effort. Y'all can push back all you like. The facts are right there, right? So so we have to dissect all of this stuff now. And people died. There was a policeman who died. They beat this man with a fire extinguisher. So much for Blue Lives Matter, right? Right? They beat this man with a fire extinguisher. Senator, there was another senator that talked about the fact that panic buttons were removed from her office. Another senator talked about the fact that the the rioters passed the office that had his name on it and went directly to the place where they normally work, like him and his staff normally works, because he doesn't normally sit in the office that has his name on it. They knew where he normally would be. And what did they do? They bypassed, because they knew where he was going to be. And they bypassed the office that had his name on it and went straight to this other place where they normally hang out. I'm not making this stuff up, right? So a lot of stuff has to happen. And so the first thing that happened was the Congress impeached Trump again. Think about this for a second, right? You get impeached once, right? Can you even fathom being able to say, I got impeached again? Which means, oh man, they're on to me the first time, and I narrowly missed a bullet. Yes, it was Senator Clyburn from South Carolina. So I narrowly missed I narrowly missed the bullet. You know what? I'm gonna straighten up and fly straight from here on in, because whoo, that was close. Nah, that's not the mindset of a narcissist. The mindset of a narcissist is that you miss me, and I am untouchable. I am unflappable. I am unstoppable, right? And that's exactly what we got. We got him emboldened by the fact that he was acquitted the first time. He saw himself as a Teflon Don of sorts, right? And so here we are. He's impeached the second time. The second time. And now we see that we're starting to see there are Republicans who are, going back on their support of him. Before, it was only Democrats that voted for the impeachment. Now it was Democrats and 10 congressmen, congresspeople who voted for him for the impeachment. And now you are starting to see, well, it's not going to the Senate until Moscow Mitch is pushing it until after the inauguration, right? Which means I don't want this in my lap, right? And so after the inauguration, he doesn't have any say anyway. And so now he's pushing it to after the inauguration, and he has hinted that he may actually vote to remove him. So we'll talk about the whole removing thing. It's like, and so why are all of a sudden you starting to see these Republicans backtrack and start to try to move back to what the original point of their party before Trump is going to be a time period we're going to call it BT, before Trump, right? And the reason is that the money is starting to leave. The money is starting to seep out. Major corporations who are backers of the Republican Party have started to pull their money away from the campaigns of the senators and the Congress people who backed the president, right? the people who were dissenters to the ratification of the vote, those people, listen, we know who you are. The list is out there, and the corporations are starting to say, we're not going to support you. We're pulling our money out, and so these senators are not all of a sudden having a crisis of consciousness and being like, oh my God, I've now seen the light that this is an atrocity. And, we are now seeing this is not the government that I signed up for. This is the anti-democratic and yada, yada. No. They're losing money. Corporations are starting to leave. And they know that if the corporate money that they so depend on, or the PACs that they so depend on, start to turn on them, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. Because two things. The Republicans know that they can rely on the corporations. But they also know that if corporation money moves, that the Democratic Party can grassroots raise money. And that is frightening for them. So now you're starting to see a lot of people be like, oh, no, I don't support this crazy man and his assault on the democracy and the republic. No, I don't support him. I'm going to vote. So we may actually see those 17 Republican senators that are needed in order to convict him, actually vote to convict him. I'm not holding my breath. Just so we're clear, right? I'm not holding my breath. I don't think it's going to happen. I think this is all performative again. But the money train, as Felicia just said, the money train is pulling out. And if they don't want it to completely leave the station, they got some fence mending to do, right? And speaking of money being pulled out, right? The PGA pulled the 2022 Masters champion, the 2022 one of their tournaments, one of the tournaments away from one of his courses, from one of his golf courses, which I know he is pissed about. He's pissed, right? New York City has canceled all contracts with the Trump Foundation and the Trump Corporation. Canceled all of it. So all of the parks that had Trump on it, and the ice skating rinks and all that stuff, gone. Right? They've canceled all. And Bill De Blasio, which I thought was crazy, because the last thing we need right now is rhetoric. Bill de Blasio gets on TV and talking about, I was like, well, if we said that we were going to be, if we were doing business with the mob, you would say that that we should stop doing that. And I was like, okay, see, this is where you go too far. It's like, excuse me. So it's just like, and somebody said, so are you comparing the Trump organization to the mob? It's like, well, it's proven itself to be a organized crime organization. Oh, God. That's not the rhetoric that we need right now. Is it true? Yes, it's actually true. The Trump Corporation is dirty. It's completely dirty, right? But it is still not the rhetoric that we need right now, because that's all that the right-leaning newspapers need for them to be like, run the headlines like, De Blasio calls Trump the Gestapo, or or calls him the mafia, calls him the organized crime, and you setting yourself up for libel or slander. I keep on forgetting which is which. One is talking, I think speech slander. Yes, slander. Right. So you setting yourself up for slander. You called the man the head of an organized crime organization. You don't have any proof of that. So again, it deflects from the work that needs to be done. So that's my whole point on that. So he lost all his contracts with that. And I know he's pissed about those things, about the PGA pulling out and all the rest of that. I think the thing that he is most pissed about is the fact that he's been removed from all social media. All social media. He's been removed from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Everybody's like, we no longer want you on our platform. Even Pornhub Pornhub issued a statement that Donald J. Trump is not welcome on their site. When the leading free porn site says, nah, son, you too dirty for even us. You know you have hit rock bottom when they say we're deleting your account, which also says that he had a Pornhub account. Anyway, so like seriously, so he's hot right now. He's hot because, as my wife pointed out to me, one of the things that he's probably been trying to do is create this media empire afterwards, right? He wants to have this way where he is this media mongol, like the Rupert Murdochs of the world, and he was hoping to parlay his success in the White House into this big following and launch this media network. Dude can't even tweet at this point, right? And I know it is burning him right now that he has been impeached once again and can't tweet about it. So just to get back to this whole impeachment thing and doing it after he's already out of the office. So everybody's like, well, why do this now? And everybody's like, well, isn't this a waste of time, right? And why are we rushing this through? First of all, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, y'all rushed through a Supreme Court nomination for a lifetime appointment. So let's not talk about rushing. Second of all, the reason people are trying to make sure that he is not that he is impeached and that he's convicted of it, because if he is convicted of with the impeachment, it means that he can never hold federal office ever again. Right? He can never hold federal office ever again. And that's important because there is still a portion of this country that will want to come back around at the next election and say, you know what? Let's try this. Let's kick the can again. Right? And there's a conversation about the fact that one of the reasons that Moscow Mitch might actually sign on for this is if he is convicted and he can't run for federal office again, it puts Mitch back at the forefront of the leadership of the Republican Party. He gets to call the shots, and he gets to call the shots from now on. And if he's not able to run, he can't hold any leadership positions in the Republican Party, right? So, there's a goal behind not censoring. Everybody wanted to censor him, and he got impeached. So he can never run again. His salary, his pension, goes away, and the Secret Service detail goes away. He'd have to pay for his own Secret Service instead of the nation, the taxpayer dollars going to protect a man who tried to drag down democracy. What's going on in the chat? No pension or travel allowance. Yep, he can. Yes, so he can't try in 24 to come back. Yep, he'll be out. Caitlin says, I love how people are crying. Corporate 1984 overreach because they can ban the president from Twitter. The president isn't banned. Trump is banned. He is a private citizen 6 days. The presidential Twitter accounts are still operable. All those things are absolutely true, right? And so, first of all, regular people get put in Facebook jail for saying the word ass, right? That right there might get knocked out, and I might have to delete that in order to post this video, right? So he has had warning after warning after warning after warning about posting stuff that is invalidated. Yes, invalidated on his account, and they've had to flag it multiple times. So even based on that, Twitter could say, "Look, man, we give you a bunch of warnings, and you disregarded all of them, and on top of that, you incited a riot at the Capitol. So we're well within our rights." It's not like this is the first time that he did something and Twitter banned him, right? So so people always want to be talking about, it's not fair, it's censorship. It is not a government sanctioned communication device, right? He's a private citizen and will be in a few days. He's a private citizen. So y'all could go kick rocks with that one, right? But I think that it is. We have a long haul ahead of us. Is what I'm sighing about. And he don't pay his bill. Ask Giuliani. But didn't Giuliani say that he was going to work for him, and the salary he was going to take was $1? Remember that? About 4 years ago, when he signed on to be his lawyer, he said he wasn't going to take a salary, and the only salary that he was going to take was $1. Tax purposes, of course, because if he only gets paid $1, he only has to declare that to the IRS, which means he only pays taxes on $1, as opposed to the amount of money that is constantly funneling into his bank account for other things, right? So there is there. There are very few things that have me stupefied in this life, and this whole situation has had me completely befuddled. Completely befuddled. And so I want to believe that we are on the way to mending. And what does mending look like? Mending does not necessarily mean back to the old ways of doing things, because the old ways of doing things means that there is corruption and disenfranchised people are still at the bottom of the ladder. I mean, mending into a point where we are moving forward and have some sort of progressive thought. That's what I'm hoping that we're moving towards, because as you can use every idiom that you want. But it is always darkest before the light, and all the rest of that stuff. But I think that we have to get worse to get better. And I think we got really bad where people were starting to see us like, we'll stoke the fires of these white supremacists because they will attack our opponents. Right? And then when the dog started biting its own hand, people were like, well, now, dog, we got to put this dog down. Right? So, maybe getting all the way bad made people realize that just like a bullet has no eyes, these groups don't really see loyalty unless you're on their cause. They're not loyal to you because of who you are. They're loyal to you because you gave them access to power. And when you stop giving them access to power, you become the enemy. And hopefully the realization of that will help them to get back to center. Victoria, I'm sorry, Vic. Sorry about that. Giuliani is possibly facing expulsion from the New York Bar Association. Listen, New York Bar. If you don't kick this guy out for all of the shenanigans and the way that he has misrepresented the bar, then you are a joke. You are a joke. And I say this with a member of the bar sitting above me right now, right? If they don't kick out Rudy Giuliani, the membership in the bar is an absolute and complete joke. Anyway, I wanted to talk about I do want to talk about the QAnon shaman who got arrested, the guy with the horns, right? Got arrested and then went to jail. And last week, I don't know if it was if I laughed about it no, because he hadn't gotten arrested yet. And last week, I laughed about the fact that he was on a hunger strike because they would not, and get this, give him organic food to eat. He only ate organic food, and there was no organic food in the prison. Shocker, right? And I laughed. I was like, what does this guy think? He's in prison. What else do you think he's going to eat? Yada, yada, yada. And then a judge was like, get him organic food. What? You can make requests in prison? I mean, certain people can make requests in prison. He made a request for organic food and they got it for him. Not religious, He's not saying that I don't have any, and as a matter of fact, the people that were being detained on the border who were Muslim were saying that I keep halal, and they were giving them pork, right? But this guy wanted organic food. Like the food that was already in the prison wasn't good enough for him. He wanted organic food, and I laughed. I was like, "This is crazy! How dare he ask for that?" And they went and got it. Judge ruled that it is a violation of his rights to provide to prevent him from eating the food that he is accustomed to. What a country! What a time to be alive! It's about to be a whole lot of people afraid to allowing people to have a voice, fear of losing monopoly on power. It's about voter suppression, always has been. Yes, it has. They should have given him shit to eat, says Freddie. Hey, Freddie. Vic says Earl used to work at food services at MCC, the federal prisons, and yes, they have to adhere to dietary requirements of the inmates. But like organic, again, this is not like I'm allergic to that stuff. That's some all I only shop at Whole Foods kind of stuff. Anyway, and I understand that I understand that concept, right? So, but like it this guy literally just broke into the Capitol, and we're bending over backwards organic food. Anyway, it is time for me to go. I am going to get ready to cook dinner. I am making lamb stew tonight. One of my family's favorites. It's like actually one of those foods where I can make one thing and everybody will eat it the exact same way that I prepared it for everybody. So I'm making lamb stew tonight, and I will report back to you guys next week. Hopefully, I have some great news. Next week, we will have been on the other side of the inauguration, and hopefully, it will go smoothly. No, it is not organic stew, and so hopefully, it will go very very smoothly. To all of my AKA friends, all people who are listening to this who are AKAs or know AKAs or are have contact with AKAs. If you to go to the inauguration, headed to DC to show up en masse to support your soror, do not do that. I'm just going to say it right now. It is not worth it. It is not the time or place. There will come a time when y'all can completely show out, right? About how much you love this woman and how much you are proud of her, right? But don't go to DC. Don't go to DC. Happy Founders Day tomorrow, but stay your butts home. Airbnb has already canceled reservations in the DC metro area surrounding the inauguration. So they're getting ready to shut DC down. Do not play yourselves. Don't be like, all right, they shutting it down, but we got a rep for soror. Now's not the time. Now's not the time. So for those all my friends and family who are AKAs, please stay home. Ski weed to your heart's desire at home. I am sure they will hear you from DC. But anyway, I love you all. Y'all stay safe. I will see you next week. This has been the Greenhouse Effect. I am your host, Hayden Greene. Stay safe, y'all.